to take my seat.
Oh,
I want to bring some comfort to those what I call OJ's disconnect sufferers. Some of you been in church all day. You were at Sunday school this morning, you were at church service, you didn't get a chance to get that afternoon meal, you're here now. And some of you got to go to other programs after you leave. So I understand some of you are here not because you want to be here, but you do it out of respect for my brother from another mother. And I understand that First Lady Nadine Whitfield was not coming. But Reverend Whitfield said, if I got to go listen to that fool, you going too. And by the way, Esther, give Nadine a quarter for introducing me, but be sure to get 20 cents back. So for those of you who are here, I want to bring some comfort to you. I know you're suffering. So what I call the OJ's disconnect, mind-body disconnect syndrome. That's the condition. You did OJ say, you know, your body is here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town.
that's right.
I know a lot of you fall into that category. It's with great pleasure and deep humility that I stand before you here this afternoon as we celebrate the history and heritage of the African American people. And I want to acknowledge, they've already been acknowledged, but I want to do it again. First, my pulpit ministers here, my brother, Reverend Jack Brown, my brother-in-law, Reverend Bertha Whitfield. And I want to say to Mayor Duke, there's enough Browns here today. We are going to take a vote and change the name of Adel to Brownsville. Certainly glad to see you here, Mayor Duke, as well as our Board of Education member, Mrs. Sister Ferry Gear, as well as Pastor Horn, and want to recognize the First Ladies of all of our pastors here. Again, I'm really happy to be here to celebrate the history and heritage of the African American people. You know, history in terms of connecting to our past. For without a past, we have no future. And heritage in terms of the value that the African American people have brought and continue to bring to the development and advancement of this nation. I want to again commend Pastor Brown, Sister Mitchell, and all who are responsible for sponsoring such programs as these Black History programs. It's not only desirable, but actually it has been ordered by the Bible.
Yes.
The Bible tells us that we remember the days of old and consider the years of many generations.
Yes.
It says, the scripture says we are to ask our Father and he will tell us. And ask the elders and they will show us.
Yes.
And the Bible goes on to say through the prophet Joel, says we have an obligation to tell our children about it and let our children tell their children and their children the next generation. The psalmist says, I will open my mouth in parables.
Yes.
I will utter things hidden from of old that we have heard and known and our fathers have relayed to us. We will not hide them from their children, but will declare to the next generation the praises of the Lord and his might and the wonders he has performed.
Yes.
You see, it is important for us to know and understand that that the origin of our people, the origin of the African American people precedes the discovery of these United States of America.
Yes.
And that our roots are deeply embedded in the soils of civilization, going back to the kingdoms of Africa. So it's important to know from whence we came and where our roots began.
Yes.
As you know, the deeper the roots, the deeper the tree root is, the more vibrant is that tree.
Yes, yes.
See, if we place our origin in the year 1620 on the Mayflower, our roots would barely be covered by the topsoils of the American plantations.
Yes.
But if we trace our roots back to the foot of the Great Pyramids in Egypt in 4000 BC, it would place our roots at the beginning of civilization as we know it today.
Yes, yes.
It would also suggest that the fruits of other races might have come from the seeds of African heritage. I do think that it would be robbery if we were to celebrate the history of America's children of color and not to make some mention of the contribution that the 20th century Moses made to the progress and advancement of our people.
Okay.
Like the Moses of the Old Testament, who took 40 years to make an 11-day journey through the wilderness to the Promised Land. This Moses took 13 years to complete a 3-hour trip from Montgomery, Alabama to Memphis, Tennessee.
Yes.
Rather than taking a straight and direct route, he took a tortuous path through the wilderness of injustice, down into the valley of segregation, out into the desert of oppression, and over the mountains of despair.
Yes.
From Montgomery, Alabama, where Rosa Parks sat down for freedom, this Moses traveled to Little Rock, Arkansas, where 9 Negro students stood up for justice by integrating an all-white high school there. Then over to Greensboro, North Carolina, where he ate a pork chop sandwich at a whites-only lunch counter.
Yes, it is.
Then on to nearby Albany, Georgia, where the Negroes there straightened their backs up, knowing that a man can't ride your back.
Unless you
October 28, 1963, this Moses fell asleep in Washington, D.C. and dreamed America's dream. Then woke up in Oxford, Mississippi to enroll James Meredith in the all-white University of Mississippi. But not only that, this Moses' meandering trek took him back to the state of Alabama.
All right.
This time to the city of Selma one bloody Sunday afternoon, where he was met by the brute force of police billy clubs on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Then down to the city of Birmingham, where he turned police commissioner Bull Carter into a heifer. While in that same city, he wrote a letter from the Birmingham jail explaining to his fellow clergymen why we can't wait on the American judicial system to take its course, telling them that justice delayed is justice denied. Finally, this Moses found himself on the mountaintop in Memphis, Tennessee on April 3rd, 1968. Where he looked over and he saw the Promised Land. And like the Moses of the Bible, although Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. saw the Promised Land, he never set foot on it. I say to you today, my brothers and sisters, that in 2019, the Promised Land of America still eludes its children of color. In fact, it sometimes seems as though we find ourselves at the foot of the mountain upon which Dr. King stood. That mountain has become a slippery slope that triggers mudslides of oppression to cover up any progress that has been made thus far. Not only that, the volcanic lava of injustice loom at our feet as we shuffle to avoid sinking into craters created by racist earthquakes. Yes, we have not stepped into the Promised Land. I want to make it clear that America is not the Promised Land. Although it is the land of promise, let us be clear, it is not the Promised Land. The Promised Land is that which God has waited for us. want us to do, the text from which I want to preach from comes from the depths of the Old Testament, the very first book. We'll find it in the 25th chapter, actually verses 19 through 28. I want to read just a portion of that, if you don't mind. And this is the New International Version. It says, Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife, Rebekah, became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated.
Yes.
One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau.
Yes, yes.
After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. But I want to put emphasis on verse number 23, which says, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. I want you to think with me from the thought facing the struggle within.
All right.
Facing the struggle within. This past December 22nd, the federal government of the United States of America suffered a major self-induced stroke. A stroke that precipitated a national cardiac arrest and paralyzed the nation's central nervous system.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
With the stroke of a pen, the government was shut down, and the nation fell into a diabetic coma where it lay for 35 days in the intensive care unit. Over 800,000 federal workers suffered from hypertension as their blood pressure rose because of lack of an oxygen known as a paycheck.
All right.
We should have seen it coming because the signs were there. You see, a stroke has a sign, certain sign. One is slurred speech. And if you listen to the speech coming out of the White House, it's twisted.
Always.
That was a sign, but not only that, blurred vision. The government, they were unable to see the damage or that the border wall would cause to the people of this country and the people of the other country, and they're unable to see that the people in this country don't want a border wall. So the vision that was blurred. But there was also confusion in D.C. So much confusion that nobody knows what was going on. So the signs of a stroke were there.
Yes, it was.
And even though America has suffered a stroke, and that one is more likely to happen in the next 5 days or so, there is a greater underlying sickness in this nation. The stroke is symptomatic of a greater condition, a greater moral, social, and psychological condition that is plaguing this nation. America is suffering from a condition that is causing her to hallucinate. You see, it's hallucination when you hear that this administration has done more than any other president in this country on everything that he's done. I think that's a bit of a hallucination.
For sure.
America is suffering from a condition that is causing her to have withdrawal symptoms. America is withdrawing from her commitment
Yes.
to form a more perfect
More
union,
perfect,
to establish
yeah.
justice, to ensure domestic tranquility,
Yes.
provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty
Yes.
to ourselves and our
Yes.
prosperity.
Yes.
America is withdrawing from her pledge to be one nation under God.
Under God. Yes.
She is
Yes.
withdrawing from her stance to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of forming a more perfect union, this
Ah.
nation is showing symptoms of being broken
Yes.
and
Yes.
disjointed.
All right.
America is suffering from a severe case of moral, social, and psychological schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Yes, America is a nation with a split personality.
Tell it. Tell it. Tell
The
it.
United States of America is an America of two nations. Two nations. It's an America that pledges one nation under God. but
Yes. Yes.
It's an America that has forgotten God.
Yes.
And has taken prayer out of school.
All right, yes,
And the Ten
yes.
Commandments off the wall.
Yes.
And halls of the courthouse.
Uh-huh.
Two nations.
All right.
It's an America that sang land of the free and home of the brave, but in
Yes.
reality, this America said that this land can be free to us
Yes,
if we
yes.
take it from the Native American braves. And they stole more than 1 billion acres, and from the Native Americans, which led to a trail of tears on Indian reservations. Two nations. An America that espoused the notion that all men are created equal,
Yes.
but an America that housed the motion that its white men are free, red men are savages, and black men are slaves. Two nations. An America whose symbol of freedom and hope, the Statue of Liberty, says, come one, come on.
Yes, yes.
But it's an America who has turned her back to Mexico and extended her hands of welcome to Moscow.
Moscow. That's right.
The first mention of two nations in the Bible is found in the book of Genesis, from whence come our text.
Yes.
God
Yes.
tells the pregnant Rebecca that two warring nations are in a womb, and
Yes,
that the
he did.
older will serve the younger.
Yes, he did.
They were Jacob and Esau.
Yes. Yes.
But before Jacob and Esau were Isaac and Ishmael.
Yes.
And before Isaac and Ishmael were Cain and Abel.
Yes. Yes.
We know about Joseph and his 11 brothers.
Yes.
We
Yes.
know about the nations of David and Goliath. We know about the prodigal son and his brother.
Yes.
The Bible tells us that Jacob stole both the birthright and the blessing from his brother
Yes, he
Esau.
did. Yes, he
You
did.
see, a birthright was an honor given to the firstborn, bestowing head of household status and the right to inherit the father's estate. And the son with the birthright would receive a double portion of whatever was passed down. And blessings were more or less the last will and testament of the father. Inasmuch as Jacob stole both the birthright and the blessing from his older brother, guess one could call him a thief. And if we look at the history of this nation, we can see some Jacob and Esauism taking place.
Yes. Yes.
History tells us that the original settlers of this nation could very well be compared to Jacob.
All right.
They could be a Jacob nation. Like Jacob, this nation of people could be described as a band of thieves. How so, you ask, preacher? Well, the records show that the early settlers stole away from Great Britain. They came to this land and stole the birthrights of the Native Americans in this land.
Yes, yes.
And then they stole the people from another land.
That's right,
They
that's
put
right.
the native land on plantations.
Yes.
The people they stole from another land, they put them on, I take that back. They took the native land, put them on reservations, and they put the slave people on plantations.
That's what they did. That's what they did.
So they stole the birthrights of the native land by taking away the place of where they were born.
Yes,
And
yes.
sent them on a trail of tears or reservations of some of the most desolate and non-productive lands in the country.
Yes, yes.
Interesting comparison with the Native Americans and Esau. They both were red and they both had long hair.
Yes. All right.
Well, about the same time that this new America was being birthed and being built, along came a nation of people from Africa who seemingly traveled the same path as Joseph, the son of Jacob. You know the story of Joseph. This nation of people was brought to America in the same way that Joseph, the son of Jacob, was taken to Egypt. That is, they were sold into slavery by their brothers.
Yes, yes, yes.
They were thrown into a pit of a slave ship, taken through the Middle Passage en route to the land of America.
Yes, yes.
On arrival, they became victims of some of the cruelest treatment given to humans. They were immediately separated from their family, wife from husband, their children from parents. They were sold to the highest bidder, where they endured even more cruelty from their new slave master. The men were beaten, and the women were raped, and they were degraded to an inhumane status, considering them to be property, but not people.
Yeah.
They could no longer practice their African culture and customs. And like Joseph, the new owner changed their name in an attempt to disconnect them from their heritage.
Yes,
You will recall that the Pharaoh changed Joseph's name from Joseph to Zapmapaneah.
Yes.
Likewise, the names of Daniel and the Hebrew boys were changed from Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, respectively.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
This nation of people, this Joseph nation, was robbed of their birthright because they were taken from their place of birth and separated from their birth family. This nation of people was also robbed of their blessing by the white men because of the laws that were in the book. You see, slaves had no rights.
Yes.
They had no rights, and it was illegal for them to learn to read or write. They could only worship or attend church under the watchful eye of the slave master or overseer. Do you know what when we do to this day, when we're in church, and sometimes when we get up, we raise our hands to his. Do you know where that come from? Well, I'll tell you where it came from. It came from during slavery time when they were in church, the Negroes were in church service. There were always the white overseer or white master there. And when the person raised the hand, it was letting the master know that I'm just going out to be excused, but I'll be back. The master would think that they would get ready to run away. So we carry that tradition down to this day. We raise our hands and just let you know that I'll be back. A bit of history 101.
That's all right. That's all right.
But they cannot read or write. Many of the inventions made by African slaves went to the credit of their master because the laws on the book prevented slaves from owning anything of value. Thus, they had to surrender their valuables to the slave owners. That's why African Americans today are not financial beneficiaries of the great inventions that our ancestors made. And actually, a lot of the white slave owners got credit for the inventions that we had, including the cotton gin and Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Patents on the book said that slaves could not have patents, but must go to their owner. Everything that they own, both manual and intellect. Through it all, this nation of people survived and thrived in this land. The health and wealth of this nation are outgrowth of slave labor on American plantations. We survived slavery, segregation, discrimination, injustice, hatred, rats and roaches. We survived it all.
All right. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
There are two nations in this land. There's the Jacob nation and there's the Joseph nation. America is still an America of two nations suffering from schizophrenia with a split personality. The struggle continues. The Bible tells us that Jacob went on to have wrestled with God. God changed his name to Israel. Now the 12 tribes of Israel came from the seeds of Jacob. Joseph, in the meantime, went on to become a dream interpreter. The dream caused him to save Egypt from famine.
Yes, yes.
We look at our Joseph nation, we didn't have a dream interpreter, but we did have a dreamer.
Yes, we
And that
did.
was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes, yes.
We are a nation of two Americas. As Dr. King has often said, we may have come to America on different ships, but we are all in the boat together.
Yes,
Concept of warring nations come in many forms. Warring nations are peppered throughout the annals of history and are well documented in the New and Old Testament.
yes, yes.
In each case, there is a struggle for power, a struggle that dates back to the Garden of Eden. Two nations, Republicans and Democrats. Two nations, Christians and non-Christians.
Yes.
Two nations, believers and non-believers, black men and women, white men and women, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics. Two nations, East Coast and West Coast.
Yes, yes.
Two nations, North and South. There was civil war to fight those two nations.
Yes, yes.
Two nations, South America, North America. Two nations, South Vietnam, North Vietnam. Two nations, South Korea, North Korea.
Yes,
two
yes,
nations,
yes.
the southern kingdom of Israel and the northern kingdom of Israel. Two nations.
Yes, yes.
Even when it comes to the Word of God, we find that there are two nations. There's the Quran and the Bible.
Yes.
Here's one I bet you didn't know. Two nations. King James Bible and Queen James Bible. Believe it or not, there is a Queen James Bible for the gay community. Two nations. Two social warring nations.
Yes,
We
yes.
find our culture clashing with our Christianity.
Yes.
We find our tradition tackling our theology. We find our socialism sparring with our spirituality, our rites and rituals wrestling with our religiosity, our government grappling with our God. Two nations.
Yes, yes.
But also two nations within ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Two nations, flesh and spirit.
Yes.
Sin nature and holy nature. Two nations, right and wrong. Two nations, good and evil.
Yes.
Two nations, blessings and curses. Two nations, life
All right,
and death.
all
Two
right.
nations,
Yes,
God
yes.
and Satan.
All right.
Bible tells us, Jesus said, you will always hear of wars, rumors of wars, and nations
Yes.
will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. You see, Jesus came to this earth in an effort to deal with warring nations.
Yes, yes.
You have nations. The question is, what is your warring nation? Whatever your warring nation is, if you ask Jesus, he'll fix it.
Yes, it will. Yes,
If your nation is a nation with the issue of blood for 12 years, call on Jesus.
it will. Call him. Call him. Call him.
Your nation
Call him.
is a paraplegic nation of 38 years at the pool of Bethesda. Call on Jesus and he'll.
Yes, he will.
Your nation is a nation that's been blind since birth.
Jesus.
By the name of Bartimaeus, call on
Call
Jesus.
him. Call him.
Your nation on sickness, call on Jesus.
Call.
If your nation is the sickness of a loved one, call on Jesus.
Call.
Yes, Jesus dealt with warring nations.
Yes.
He even dealt on 2 warring nations when he was laying, hanging on the cross.
Yes, he did.
The Bible tells us that Jesus was put on the cross in between 2 thieves. A nation on the left and a nation on the right.
Yes.
Nation on the left looked at Jesus and said, why don't you save yourself? Didn't save us. That nation on the right said, don't you have any respect? Now this is not the KJV version, but the King James version. This is the NSV, the Negro sensationalized version. And he said, don't you have any respect for this man? He has done nothing wrong.
Nothing.
We are getting what we deserve. This man has not
Nothing
done
wrong.
anything.
Yes.
And that man that on the right, the thief on the right, looked at Jesus and said, Jesus said, Lord, please remember me when you come into your
Remember me.
Jesus said, I guarantee you, I promise you, this day, you will be with me in
paradise.
Even at the last time Jesus is going to be on earth, he is saving somebody.
Yes, he is.
But it also goes to show that even at your last second on earth, if you call on Jesus, he will save. You know what? All 3 men died on the cross that day.
Yes, they did.
But can I tell you how? The man on the left, that nation on the left, he died in rejection. The man on the right died in repentance.
Yes,
the man in the middle, that's Jesus, he died in redemption.
All right.
The man on the left died in regret. The man on the right died in remorse. And the man in the middle died in righteousness.
Yes.
Man on the left died miserably.
Yes.
The man on the right died mercifully.
All right.
The man in the middle died the Messiah.
Jesus.
The man on the left died Paul, and the man on the right died favorite, and the man in the middle died the friend. The man on the left died in grief. The man on the right died in grace, and the man in the middle died in glory.
All right.
Died in sin. The man on the right died from sin. The man in the middle died for sin.
All right.
The man on the left died a sinner. The man on the right died a saint. And the man in the middle died a savior.
Okay.